Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 9 a.m. session on knowledge management. Our session today is sponsored by eMazanti. eMazanti are technology strategists, solution providers, facilitators, and vigilant watchkeepers, a team expertly certified IT professionals that can rapidly deliver and deploy technology strategies to help your organization grow and keep pace with your competition. To learn more and connect with eMazanti, please visit them virtually on the sponsor section of the conference website. So our speaker for today's session, Knowledge Management Explained, is Victoria North. Victoria's career in information spans more than 30 years. Most of her experience is in the legal sector, but she has also worked for accountancy firms KPMG and Grant Thornton. She joined the London office of Kirkland & Ellis at the beginning of 2012 and was responsible for managing research services, information governance, and new business and conflicts. In January 2017, Victoria relocated to Kirkland's New York office to take on the role of Director of Knowledge Services. In her current role, she supports more than 30 knowledge management attorneys with the collection and organization of knowledge content and responding to requests for information using internal data. She is currently president of Special Libraries Association's New York community, and she is the former chair of the British and Irish Association of Law Librarian. Please join me in welcoming Victoria to the virtual stage.
Thanks very much, Glenn, and good morning, everybody. And thank you very much for inviting me to talk to you today. That was a very comprehensive introduction, so thank you very much. I think all I would want to add is a bit more background about Kirkland and my team before I go any further into the talk today. So, as Glenn said, I'm Director of Knowledge Services at Kirkland, and I manage a team of 8. We all, nearly all of us, have library and information as our background skills. And what I've found is as my career's developed, knowledge management has become more important in many organizations, and particularly in law. And my career and my team's career have developed accordingly. As Glenn said, our job is to support 30 knowledge attorneys. This is a role which I think is probably specific to law firms. I'm not sure if other organizations have professionals who specialize in knowledge for the groups that they work in. In law, knowledge attorneys are experienced lawyers who have taken a slightly different career path, and rather than working exclusively on client work, they provide support to their groups, including knowledge collection, training, support with pitches, and KM projects. And this is what my team does. This is where my team supports them. A bit more information about Kirkland. Kirkland is a large global firm. There are, I believe, 2,000 people, staff and attorneys in the whole firm, and offices are in the US, Europe, and Asia. And the areas of law that we focus on are private equity, restructuring, and litigation. Okay, so my aim today is to explain knowledge management. That's a big remit for me, but I'm going to do that based on what I know about knowledge management, which I hope will resonate with your own organizations. Obviously, I'm going to be focusing on what I know, which is KM in law, but I think many of the principles would be applicable in other areas. There is a stronger crossover between the work my team does and that of Glenn's in information governance. And I'm sure you've come across similar connections in your own organizations with KM. But I understand that perhaps it can be, people don't necessarily understand all the ins and outs of what knowledge managers do, what the purpose of KM is, and basically what I'm going to cover today. So that's my aim, to give you a bit more insight of what we do and how maybe it connects with some of your work. So I'm going to begin by giving you a definition of knowledge management. I'll go on to explain what I believe are the key elements of KM in an organisation. We'll go on to discuss where knowledge comes from, managing knowledge products, some of the KM challenges that we encounter, and then finally I intend to finish on a high note, explaining how we can generate value from knowledge, so the real purpose and the benefits of good knowledge management. My experience of being on virtual conferences is they tend to be quite more participative, especially as we have the chat feature. So I will pause at the end of each slide, and if anybody has asked any questions in the chat, I'm more than happy to deal with them then and there to keep the momentum going. But we'll also have an opportunity for questions at the end. So I hope that works for us all. Okay. So as promised, I'm starting with a definition of knowledge management. So I suspect there are as many versions or definitions of KM as there are organisations that practice it. It can be perhaps an overused or sometimes misused term. I have got a quote from an expert in law firm management, a consultant called Joshua Fireman, a very memorable name. He runs a consultancy who support law firms such as Kirkland. Kirkland have worked with him and helps them with advising on knowledge projects and knowledge systems to employ. So I thought I would rely on him to give us a what I believe is a good definition. So I don't intend to read this out entirely, but you can read it yourselves while it's on the screen. I have highlighted what I think are the key terms to what he's describing here. So it's about enabling leveraging collective experience. So collective experience is stronger than just single individual's experience. And what we do with that and why we do that is knowledge management provides the ability to access and reuse everything from past work products to the firm's knowledge and experience. So that, I think, for me, encompasses it. Be interested to know if anyone disagrees or has another definition, or if there's anything missing from that. Perhaps we can, let me know on the chat. Okay. We'll now go on to what I believe makes up knowledge management in an organisation. And I think these principles will be common to any workplace. So first of all, the most important part of what makes up knowledge management is the actual, what we're collecting, the knowledge itself. So this is generally based on professional experience. So that could be the experience of the lawyers, the accountants, the consultants, the bankers that you're working with, and their expertise. So it's quite a big ask because a lot of this experience expertise is in people's heads. It's not necessarily that easy to capture, but that's what we aim to do. And I think the second most important aspect of KM is technology. So without technology, without systems, databases, various processes, we wouldn't be able to capture that knowledge, we wouldn't be able to share it. So the two go hand in hand. I've called out information governance as an important element. Obviously, I'm conscious of the audience I'm talking to, but nevertheless, this is also a very important aspect of what we do. One may say that there could be deemed to be a bit of a conflict between knowledge management, which is about sharing knowledge, and information governance, which is about protecting a organization's information and knowledge. But We never intend to do anything. We never intend to do anything we're not supposed to do with the information and the materials we share. We're very conscious that there are confidentiality issues around a lot of the information that we have. So we work very closely with Kirkland, work very closely with Glenn's team to ensure that client confidentiality is always honoured, and that only those people who have access to certain materials there are permissions to make sure that only those who should see the materials see them. Information management, that's very much my team's area of expertise. This is about how we organise the materials received, how we organise the data, applying metadata, etc., to ensure that it's findable, verifying accuracy and currency of what we're managing. Obviously, what we really want to do is to make use of all this knowledge and information we're collecting. So the ability to report is very important, making reporting easy. Increasingly, knowledge is found in data. So data analytics is becoming an important element of KM. And then finally, the promotion and training. So all this good work that we're doing can count for nothing if people aren't going to actually use the products that we create, the information that we make available. So an important aspect of what we do is promoting what's available and also training. So making sure that the professionals who would benefit from what it is we're managing have easy access and, as I say, know where to find it. Any questions there? Okay. So what I'm going to cover now is where you actually find these sources of knowledge. And I've divided the knowledge that we collect into three categories. And I think this would be common to most organisations. So probably the most important category is work products. So this is the actual, I guess, what you would say is the expertise that has been put into various materials that we then aim to capture. So pitches to clients is a very important source of knowledge. These potentially could be reused. If you've pitched to a client in a particular industry, then if someone's doing a similar a pitch to a similar client in the future, they may want to make use of what work's already been done. So that's one category we collect. Precedent materials, probably a term that's maybe just in law firms, but it's sort of standard work products. So at Kirkland, we do a lot of M&A work. So the kind of documents we would aim to capture are purchase agreements, non-disclosure agreements, engagement letters. And the idea is that we're collecting best examples of these categories of materials. And we're collecting them with the aim that they could be reused in a certain way. So if someone, again, I've mentioned work in particular industries. So if someone's done a purchase agreement for a client in pharmaceutical industry, for example, they may want to see how someone else has constructed that particular document, and that gives you somebody an enormous start in when they're sort of putting together a new document. Client presentations. Not just pitches, but when we're meeting with clients to give them advice, updates on new areas of law, or detailed insights into the current markets. Again, a very valuable source of knowledge. Updates and newsletters. Now, I know that a lot of organisations, they rely on their senior professionals to keep other their teams up to date with expert commentary. So at Kirkland, we have partners who provide regular emails on, for example, commentary on recent cases, changes in the law, and market overviews. So our aim is to collect those for future reference, and also curated alerts linking to external articles. So these fall more into the category of newsletters, more sort of topical, but those can be a useful source of know-how for future reference. And then training materials. So these could be videos and slides of training programs that we have given to new lawyers, or they could be trainings that are refreshers for established professionals. So again, a very useful source of knowledge. Next category is contacts. So contacts are very valuable, and the first category here are advisors. So if you're working on a transaction, obviously you're going to be working with a number of other professionals. It could be bankers, it could be counsel in other jurisdictions, it could be the counsel on the opposing side. So it's useful to keep a record of these people for future referrals, for recommendations. So that we normally have collections of advisors in our knowledge banks. Similarly, in litigation, we capture the names of the expert witnesses that we've worked with, detailing their specializations, where they're located. So the kind of metadata that would be useful to search on. Obviously, clients, details of clients, that would be more BD. Certainly, my team aren't keeping that information, but nevertheless, it's a source of knowledge. And alumni, so people who've left the firm, but could be a potential source of new business. We keep a database of alumni. We have an alumni program, and I suspect that's not uncommon in a lot of organisations as well. Then finally, knowledge tools. So these are other areas that you might be able to find sources of knowledge. So intranets, obviously, I'm going to be talking a bit more about how we use the intranet to promote our knowledge materials, but information on intranets could be regarded as a source of knowledge, who the people are at the firm, what the policies of the organisation are. So that's obviously a very important tool. Research databases, these tend to be the third-party information providers that provide information on, in law it would be cases and legislation, business databases on transactions, etc. Obviously, this is external data, but it always complements the internal data and information that we're collecting. We monitor discussion boards. So there are various email exchanges which are captured between groups, often asking for referral information. So that's another source of knowledge. And then finally, directories. So by this I mean information on the people in the organisation. So some of the skills that we have as an organisation are useful to capture, for example, language skills, or where people have qualified, who has the right to practice in a particular jurisdiction. Obviously, this information tends to be privileged and probably isn't made widely available. But knowing where you can obtain it on behalf of someone else is an important part of knowledge management. Okay, I see there's no further questions there, so we'll move on. I have got one question. What electronic tools, content management, analysis, software, etc. do you use? Oh my goodness. Right, well, content management, we use SharePoint, and I'll go on and talk a bit more about that in a minute. Analysis software, we are using for data analytics. We are using a system called Qlik, which enables you to build databases and produce very nice charts. So early days with that. And we use iManage as our document management system. So I hope that helps with that. And as I say, I'll be going on to discuss a few more of the more specific tools as we proceed. Let's get some water. Okay, so we've identified what the various products are. So how do we go about managing those and actually getting use out of what it is that we're collecting? This is where my team very much come into play. So the first is facilitating knowledge capture. This is how you actually get hold of the knowledge that it is you want to share. And we have various means of doing this. And I think this would be pretty standard at, for example, consultancies, etc., where you have sort of after action, after the end of a transaction or a case, etc. You have certain procedures that have to be take place, and one of those could be capturing information about the deal that you've worked on. So one way to do this is to have a standard form that has to be completed, asking various questions, which are then fed into a database. Another way is to send out surveys, soliciting or asking for submissions of useful content and asking various questions which could then become part of the metadata that you're collecting. Having dedicated email addresses for different practice groups to submit useful materials that they want to share. We also try to be as proactive as possible. So I mentioned the discussion boards that we help manage. We would look at those, and for example, if we came across somebody asking for a referral for an attorney who specialises in aviation in, say, Colorado, if we saw that referral being circulated, we would follow up with the person asking the question and ask them if they'd had any useful responses and any recommended contacts that they were given. We would then make a note of those or make them available to share with others. So that sort of gives you a bit of an oversight or insight into how we actually capture knowledge. The next is making sources of knowledge accessible. So this goes into what systems we use. So I think it's probably pretty standard that knowledge goes onto intranets. As I say, at Kirkland we use SharePoint. Each practice group has their own site, and attention is made to making these sites easy to navigate so that people can find what they're looking for. And we also would use these sites, even if we don't have actual traffic going to the sites, they are useful sites that we can link to. So we often get requests ourselves for, can you provide me with a document on that meets these requirements? So we would actually provide a link to the site itself, hopefully then encouraging more self-service in the future. Another big part of what we do is applying appropriate security to knowledge materials. So I'm sure something that will resonate with yourselves. We have a document management system. So we will, if we have links to documents, we will link to them as they are on our DMS. that ensures that any ethical laws that have been applied are honoured, and it also gives us the ability to lock down access to only certain groups or people. So we work very closely with RISC to ensure if any information that we are sharing, if it relates to a matter or a transaction that has any walls applied, then we obviously then take the necessary precautions. Sometimes we are requesting that any walls applied are lifted. So obviously this will happen eventually in the life cycle of the matter, but we in knowledge management may sort of fast track that lifting of any walls, providing that it's the appropriate time to do so. And then that enables us to, just facilitates knowledge sharing. It's very important to standardise knowledge classification. So a lot of what my team does involves building taxonomies. We use SharePoint term stores for providing controlled lists on jurisdictions, industries, professional specialisations. We have conventions for dates, how dates are expressed, authors' names, type of content. All standard things about managing information. But it's amazing if you don't have control over this or professionals overseeing it, very quickly those kind of standards can go awry, and that basically makes it very difficult to find information, and also just looks really bad when you're doing a printout of something or a report of something, and you can see a date could be expressed with American date or a British date, etc., and it just looks very unprofessional. And then finally, a very important aspect of what we do is checking for grammar and spelling. So again, very important when you're reporting on this information that everything looks professional and is correctly inputted. And then finally, we help with facilitating knowledge retrieval. So all this good work goes into collecting the knowledge, getting it onto various platforms, making it easy to search. But then we still, I think, have issues with people finding information. So, and our experience is, I don't know what other people are familiar with SharePoint, but search is not great in SharePoint. So we rely very much on browsing, page navigation. So that's, we sort of implement things like breadcrumbs to make navigating our intranet as easy as possible. We are moving over to dashboards to create charts with predefined filters. So again, aiming for more self-service in capturing knowledge data. This is early days with this, but I can see this being more and more something that we will be working on. And obviously, my team are more than happy to run searches in the way that a library research team would do for external data. We will run searches and provide reports, customized reports. And obviously the knowledge attorneys themselves, they are the experts, so they would do a lot of that work as well. I saw that there was something came through as a question. How does knowledge age out in the life cycle? That's a very good question. I think we probably aren't as we don't scrutinise the knowledge life cycle, and probably in the same way that you do in information governance, and that's probably an area that probably could be addressed. I would say there's a certain feeling that knowledge will go out of date over a certain period of time. We do have databases with information going back probably a certain amount of years, It's not the actual documents themselves. So I don't think we are coming across any problems with keeping information longer than we should. I guess we provide, I would say normally with things like training materials, we would say they could have a 3-year life cycle. I would have to admit that I think people in knowledge tend to hold on to things in the thought that, for example, with the recent changes in the economy, with what happened, there was going to be a downturn when the pandemic came in. We were pleased that we had know-how documents going back to the previous recession, and we could see, then we could monitor that there were similar trends. So we're much less disciplined than you are in information governance, but then we're probably not working with the same regulations that you are. So I hope that helps. I'd be interested to hear if anyone's got other experience of knowledge management being more aligned to client matter life cycle. I don't know if you can hear me. I've pressed a button and I'm really worried I'm going to. Okay, can someone backstage tell me if they can still see me?
Yep, just want to let you know we can still see you, Victoria.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I'll carry on. I can't see yourselves. I'm not quite sure. Okay, I will carry on. Okay, right. So I'm going on to the next screen now, which is KM challenges. So one of the big challenges, I think, with KM is actually encouraging people to practice it. So developing a knowledge culture in an organization. Now, traditionally, professionals such as lawyers, probably, and consultants and bankers, is probably the same, have been somewhat reluctant to share what they believe is their hard-earned intellectual property, their experience, their expertise. In the past, I think it's been more of a challenge. I have noticed that since the pandemic struck, that knowledge management has become really, really important, and people have really recognised its value. And I think this is partly due to working remotely, so not being in the same space as colleagues. So, not having the ability to go to someone's office in person and to consult with them. So I think that's created a bigger demand for KM. And I think the rapidly changing economy, the change in laws and regulations, the extraordinary times that we're living in, has created a need to work more collaboratively. So certainly these strange times, I think, have only worked to the good of people working in this particular area. Breaking down silos, I mean, that's similar to developing a knowledge culture, but I think you may have KM managed in individual groups in an organization, but those groups may be not interacting fully with other groups, or not knowing that there could be a crossover between what they're doing and other groups are doing. And also sort of facilitating the ability for one group to tap into the knowledge of another. That's a bit of a challenge, and something that we probably try to overcome by having good systems and good knowledge promotion. Connecting disparate systems, I would say this is probably holy grail of KM, is to connect systems, disparate systems, well, data in different systems such as business intake, finance, and HR, to sort of bring together the data in a data warehouse, which knowledge systems could then feed into. So in many cases with our knowledge databases, we're relying on manual entry of data, which is already held in other systems, which, as you can tell, is probably very highly inefficient. We're sort of replicating information that's already there. So there is work. I think there's there's more development in this area, and I think that we'll only get more efficient as we continue to work in connecting systems. Investment of time is a challenge. Obviously, KM is not it's not obviously revenue generating. I think it could lead to revenue generation, but it's difficult for professionals who bill their time to take time out to spend on knowledge management activities. So one of the ways organisations overcome this is to provide KM incentives, such as gifts to people who make large contributions. It could be recognised in people's year-end reviews, their contribution towards KM, and also supplying dedicated time entry codes for KM activities. Resources, this is human resources. KM done properly can be an enormous value to an organisation, but as I say, isn't necessarily viewed as a revenue generation function, and therefore resources are quite limited. The way we manage KM products, it takes time to do it properly. It's very time consuming and requires a certain level of expertise. So having enough resources to do this properly is a challenge. And then finally, expense. Investment in KM technology is expensive, and certain decisions have to be made. For example, is it worth investing in a high-spec intranet for internal use, just for internal use, or will sophisticated AI tools, which, for example, could be used for document review, have sufficient uptake to make them worth sharing, make them worth having, sorry. However, without good technology, KM is a challenge. So, convincing organisations that this is money well spent is a challenge for those whose job it is to do so. I'm so sorry, I can't see the screen at the moment. I don't want to touch anything for fear of making things worse. So if there are any questions, could someone let me know?
Hey, Anna, Victoria, we have one question. Do your group's professional teams have embedded designed knowledge managers who gather and categorize knowledge on behalf of the team?
Well, I would say yes, that is very much what our knowledge attorneys would do. So they would help us, they would help my team to decide on the type of content that we are working with. I would say although a lot of the responsibility does fall to my own team, as I was saying, we have taxonomies that we would apply to help us to apply certain metadata, categorization. There's not a lot of, yes, I mean, I suppose we would get the knowledge materials, we would upload them, then they would probably be reviewed by the knowledge attorneys, then go ahead. I know that there are some organisations that have very detailed processes for this. I would say we probably don't. We're quite agile in the way that we upload content, but I think that's because we have all the systems already in place. As I say, good standard procedures that enable us to manage the content quickly and effectively. I hope that helps. Okay, so going on to my last slide, this is where I'm very positive, and I want to demonstrate that knowledge management really does have a big role to play in an organisation. So good knowledge management obviously leads to more efficient working practices. It makes materials and contacts, areas of expertise much easier to find. We have a team of professionals to support knowledge queries, and this leads to more efficient working practices. I think also the benefit is that sharing collective knowledge, as we heard in the quote right at the beginning, creates a stronger organisation, and it makes us better able to compete with our peers. I think an important aspect of, or important benefit of KM is developing staff and the talent of your organisation. So obviously being able to share the knowledge of more experienced members of an organisation helps to develop staff who are less experienced, leading to the general growth of the organisation as a whole. And I think it helps to maybe retain professionals as well. I think professionals who feel that they have opportunities to learn, that they are being mentored, or and the more senior staff are happy to share their experience and expertise. I think that engenders a good ethic within the organisation generally, and as I say, will encourage people to stay. I mentioned how important data is becoming to law firms and organisations generally. Law firms in particular, they hold vast data sets, and I think are just beginning to realise the value of that data. And we're getting more demands from clients to provide some sort of analysis on, for example, the deals we've worked on. So using technology to analyse data enables professionals to extract valuable market data to further inform clients. And then finally, I said, KM is not necessarily regarded as a revenue generating area, but it can generate new business. I think it can be a selling point that we have access to this data. It's internal data. Other organisations aren't going to have it, so it's privileged and data that we can give to our clients and give them advantage. And of course, the experience and expertise of our professionals, which we have managed to commodify to a certain extent, is a true selling point. Okay, that was all I wanted to say. We've got a few minutes left, I believe, for any questions or anybody to share their own insights into KM.
Hey, Victoria, I don't know if you can see, but I just posed a question. Are there any new trends or developments in knowledge management that you could share that you are maybe aware of?
Well, I mean, what I sort of ended the talk with, talking about data analytics, I think that's going to be a new big area. I think it's something that all organisations are trying to get a grip on. So that's sort of taking data to its next step. It's analysing it and making it more, I guess, easier to extract. What our clients want, they want easy to understand and easy to share, sort of charts and graphs, etc. So I think that is one area of development. AI was a big area at one point. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily gone away, but I think it was maybe when I first moved to New York, which was 2017. I think everyone thought that was going to be the big disruptor, but I think what's happened is people realise it's just another tool. So AI can help us do things more quickly. But it's not necessarily going to change the way we do things. I guess, I mean, from my point of view, resources, having more people to do the work we're doing. I think, as I was saying, the pandemic has proved the value beyond doubt of good KMs. I'm hoping that there will be development in more resources, both human and available tools to help us do this work more effectively.
Thank you. Well, we're almost at time. I don't see any more questions. Thank you so much, Victoria, for your time today and your presentation. We really appreciate it.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Just a reminder to everybody, our session was sponsored by Imazanti, and you can learn more about them on our sponsor section on the website. And our next round of sessions will begin at 10 a.m. and we'll see you there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.